Hola, mi gente. Buenos días. Hace frío afuera. I know it's cold outside, but there is spring in our hearts. Am I right? It is good to be together. Our Universalist heritage promises that we are made of something special. Science raises the question that perhaps we're made of stardust. Whatever you believe, please know that in this space we acknowledge that you are inherently a gift, and we're so glad that you're here. Love is the spirit of all souls, and in this moment of our shared journey, may you feel witnessed and honored wherever you are on that journey, whether you're here for the first time or the thousandth. I invite you now to please rise in body or spirit and greet your neighbors, perhaps sharing your name and pronouns.
Good morning. Okay, good. We're gonna have something a little bit different today for a prelude, and I would like to just let you guys in inside of my mind a little bit. When we are planning the service, we try to be very meaningful with everything we do, and sometimes it is not that obvious. So I'm gonna share a little bit. I'm gonna play a piece called Reflet dans l'eau, which in French means reflections in the water. It's a piece basically about transformation. It's like when we are looking into a pond and you can see the reflection of something, but it's not quite exact, not like a mirror. It's not exactly the image. And imagine now that this water is moving, so the reflection itself is going to be constantly changing. The piece that I'm playing has a very short theme, very short material that will repeat throughout the whole piece in a lot of different settings, a lot of different ways. And I hope you guys can catch this tiny theme that will be exposed in the very beginning and will repeat several times through the piece.
Good morning. Welcome to all of you who are here with us in the moment, as well as those of you who will be catching us later on. My name is Emily Salinas. My pronouns are she, ella. I will be serving as your worship associate for today's service, together with Reverend Katie, our senior minister, whose pronouns are she, ella, the Reverend Jen Raffensperger, pronouns she, her, and Gabe Perbieri, music director, pronouns he, him. We are your worship team on the chancel today. Nancy Olson, our acting director of Faith Formation, is taking some time to do some study leave, and she will be back next week. People of all ages are joyfully welcomed in our service. Nursery care is available also if that option works for you. I think most of you can see that at the end, either end of your pew, you have a card. This is a connection card. It's a great way for you all to let us know if you need support, assistance, you have new contact information, or you just have a comment or question. Our Soul Matters theme this month is justice and equity. Make sure you sign up for In the Know to get the packet so that you can engage with these materials at home or at All Souls or in person and online. Thank you again for being here today.
Thank you so much, Emily and Gabe. That was gorgeous. Just gorgeous, that piece. I have just a few announcements, I promise. You'll notice we've begun printing less orders of celebration as we move closer to our net carbon zero by 2040 goal. Watch the video I created online to learn how to use the QR code, and please also know that we recognize that it is also a value to be accessible, so there will always be some print orders of celebration. Next week after service, we are celebrating Virginia DeForno, who is turning 102. Yes. There will be cake. Just as Nancy Olson, our acting director of Faith Formation, is on study leave this week, I will be on study leave next week. So Nancy will be back, but we're going to do a little swap. Have some grant work to write for us, so everybody fingers crossed. In our pulpit next week will be another friend of ours from Meadville Lombard Theological School, another grad, the Reverend Nell Newton, who's going to share an important reflection that you won't want to miss. And today, to help us out, we've been experiencing so much change in post-COVID church, and we're going to talk about this a lot over the next several weeks. We actually have a special visiting guest minister who's going to talk to us about change today. So I'd love to introduce you to a good friend of mine, the Reverend Jen Raffensperger, who is another fine Meadville Lombard Theological School grad. Rev Jen and I served together in the DC metro area. We've worked for justice at the Capitol and traversed all sorts of obstacles together, including those in a Tough Mudder, which we did with some other DC Metro ministers. Rev Jen currently serves our congregation in York, Pennsylvania. Her pronouns are she, her, and I can't think of a better colleague to be here today in our pulpit to talk about navigating change. So please give Rev Jen a warm All Souls welcome. As we move more deeply into our time together, let us acknowledge the land itself and those who've sustained it through the generations. For we are upon the unceded land of the Lenape, Miamia, Kaskaskia, Shawnee, and Kickapoo people, who were pushed from their land and whose children have been stolen for generations. As we strive to be a community of justice, may we continue to find ways to make real reparations.
Thank you, Reverend Katie, and good morning. It's an honor to be with you this morning. And I'm going to invite us into worship together by asking you to center in your body, to hear the words that call us into worship this morning. These words from Octavia Butler, from her book, The Parable of the Sower. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change.
The ritual of lighting our chalice reminds us to continually renew our promise to live into our covenant, to put love into action, and to live out the community of love and justice that we aim to be. I invite you now to please rise in body or spirit as Elena comes forward and we share the words printed in our order of service in Spanish and in English. And those who are with us online, please let us know in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. So we will begin in Spanish. Amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia y el servicio es su ley. Vivir juntos en la paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos unos a otros. Este es nuestro pacto. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you, is our covenant. Thank you, Elena. We may remain risen in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 1018 in the teal hymnal, Come and Go With Me. And if you want to just put your books down and be present to our song leader, you're still gonna sing it and it's gonna be great and you won't have to look down. So I invite you into that challenge if you would like. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. Sing it. They'll sing it in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Thank you. The music here, You Have It All Souls, is incredible. Thank you. Everyone who has offered it thus far is amazing. So today we're going to talk about change. And we're going to talk a little bit about snow. Don't blame me. I didn't plan this. I mean, I'll take the credit if you like it, but it's very timely. So we had a great snow this weekend. And snow changes the whole world, right? It changes our perspective, it changes the way everything looks, it changes the temperature, it changes our comfort zone, right? And it sometimes reminds us that the things we see every day and get kind of used to and sort of skip over become outlined and different, and we see them maybe in a new way. So change can be scary, and it can be exciting. And snow is a change that feels real different when you're at home on your couch with a cup of cocoa, with the heat functional, than when you're, I don't know, on a highway, when you are on foot, when you're in a place where you can't get to a place where there's heat. It's an entirely different kind of change, an entirely different kind of emotion you feel at that change. So a couple weeks ago, we had Imbolc, the pagan Wheel of the Year celebration that is halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So every day is changing, right? But we have crossed over. We are more than halfway from winter into spring. And so this morning, I have this is a story, and it is also a poem, and it is also a body prayer I'm going to lead us in. So if you are comfortable standing, you may do so. If you would like to do this from your seat, you can do so. If you need to modify any of the motions, you can do what Spirit moves you to do, right? I'm going to read through this beautiful poem called Winter Poem by Nikki Giovanni. And I'm going to do the motions. You can pick up as you go, but then we're going to do it together, right? So, this is Winter Poem by Nikki Giovanni. Once a snowflake fell on my brow, and I loved it so much, and I kissed it, and it was happy, and called to its cousins and its brothers, and a web of snow engulfed me, and then I reached to love them all, and I squeezed them, and they became a spring rain, and I stood perfectly still and was a flower. You all got it really good the first time, but we're gonna do it a second time anyway. That was amazing. Okay. Once a snowflake fell on my brow, and I loved it so much, and I kissed it, and it was happy, and called its cousins and brothers, and a web of snow engulfed me. Then I reached to love them all, and I squeezed them, and they became a spring rain, and I stood still and was a flower. Beautiful. Thank you. And now I'm going to invite Annalise Kinslow to share with us a musical offering.
That was beautiful, Annalise. Thank you. We enter this space each Sunday, or if we're catching up later, we enter the space with joys and sorrows on our heart, because joy and sorrow and even the meh days are a part of our lives. And the great thing about being in community is that we don't have to move through all of those moments, those points on a line, ride those waves alone. So we set aside time each Sunday to acknowledge the spoken and unspoken joys and sorrows of this community and the greater world affected by war and calamity and hunger and strife. We hold this morning in our hearts Jerry and Sandy Dreesen as Jerry continues to recover from surgery. Sandy Ryberg is also recovering from surgery. And we bring into this space Helen Dwyer, whose cousin Betsy has been moved out of intensive care. And for many of us, we are holding the shooting in Kansas City that happened during what was meant to be a time of fun and celebration. Remembering also the violence that happens on our streets each and every day. May we also hold in our hearts the safe return of hostages while we call for a permanent ceasefire now. I light these candles for all who are suffering due to war, hunger, climate change, violence. And for the joys and sorrows unspoken in this room. Please join me as your heart calls with these words that we can center ourselves by the poet Aurora Levins Morales. Last night I dreamed 10,000 grandmothers from the 1,200 corners of the earth moved out into the gap. One deep breath between the bullet and the flesh, between the bomb and the family. They told me we cannot wait for governments. There are no peacekeepers boarding planes. There are no leaders who dare to say every life is precious. So it will have to be us. They said we will cup our hands around each heart. We will sing the earth's song, the song of water, a song so beautiful that vengeance will turn to weeping. The mourners will embrace and grief replace every impulse toward harm. 10,000 is not enough, they said. So we have sent this dream like a flock of doves into the sleep of the world. Wake up. Put on your shoes. You are receiving this. I am bringing bandages and a bag of scented guavas from my trees. I think I remember the tune. Meet me at the corner. Let's go. As we sing our children out to faith formation, I invite you to remain seated or rise as your heart calls as we sing together Fuente de Amor, Spirit of Life. The words are in the order of celebration. We will sing in Spanish first.
Hacia mí y al corazón.
This reading is an excerpt from Blessing All the Threads Between Us by Kyle Tran Myre. With no faith, you're a fatalist, no use to anyone. With no doubt, though, you're a fanatic, equally useless. One don't fight because victory's impossible. One don't fight because victory's inevitable. And we need fighters. Don't need the right names or looks, just heart. That rhythm halfway between the head and the hand, between doubt and the fist, made despite doubt, between faith and the fist, made despite faith. The heart translates. We choose to fight, not because we have done the math and know what is going to happen tomorrow. We choose to fight because we do not know. We choose to fight because doubt is real, and faith is real, and hope is real, and none of them are as real as our hands, as the neighbor standing next to us, the ancestors watching over our shoulders. Words matter less than the lungs that move them. Fighter isn't a philosophy. Organizer isn't an aesthetic. Ally isn't an identity. Tomorrow, what we should have done will be worth exactly what it's worth now, wind. And not even enough wind to move a piece of ash from here to there. So tonight, be real. Tell your story and listen to others. Feel what you feel and choose to act anyway, to show up, to resist. Ask yourself and ask each other, of what future are these wild early days?
Thank you. One day when I was 9 years old, my life changed forever. I have a brother who's 9 years older than me, and I idolized him in that way that only a little sister can. And on that day, my brother had left his library book sitting on the coffee table in our living room. This book was very intriguing to me. The cover was mostly black with some dark blue, and there was this strange and scary face seeming to loom over a sunset darkening sky over low hills. It was a paperback, but it was huge. And on the cover, I read the words, "The Stand, Stephen King." I picked it up. It was over 700 pages long. I put it right the heck back down, and I went back to reading Nancy Drew. But the thing is that a seed was planted that day. I didn't forget that book. It seemed so strange to me and so unlike anything that I had yet read in my young life. It fired my imagination just to read the blurb on the back. And not long after that, I had the good fortune to visit the used bookstore in my town. Digging around in the place I always shopped, the basket of cutout paperbacks, 4 for $1, I found another one of Stephen King's books, another book with his name on it. "Salem's Lot," said the cover. It was much shorter. And so at the grand cost of 27 cents with tax, I could afford to buy it even on my 50-cent a week allowance. I have dated myself. Enjoy. Oh, how I devoured that book. It started a lifelong relationship with Stephen King, and it started a lifelong relationship of inhabiting these imaginary worlds that dared me to dream of something hugely strange, different, and other from what I saw around me in my suburban town. So I'm interested in what some of your transformative fictional experiences have been. Movies, books, plays, TV shows, radio shows, podcasts. I would love to hear a few shout out. I'll repeat them so that folks who are joining us later can hear. But what were some transformative things that were fictional in your life? Charlotte's Web. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The Alchemist. The Jungle. On the Beach. And something about a pioneer cow? Okay. I don't know that one. That's a whole fictional world I haven't inhabited, which is exciting, right? Because these things take us to other places, and then we want to share them. So I'm also curious. How many of you have read the text from which we took our call to worship this morning, Octavia Butler's The Parable of the Sower? Okay, all right. It's great, so check it out if you haven't read it. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Octavia Butler dreamed a future, a world powerful beyond measure. And I don't just mean her astounding novels and stories that led her to become the first science fiction writer ever to be given a MacArthur Foundation Award, the so-called Genius Grant. But Butler also wrote affirmations in her journal of all that she wanted to be in the world. She started when she was a little girl who did not see black girls like her in the stories that she read, who wanted to create worlds that more people could recognize themselves in. More doors open, more truth for more people. But she also wanted success for herself, and with that success, she wanted to be able to help others. She wrote motivational notes to herself in journals that she started keeping when she was 10. So here's an example of a note that she wrote to herself. This is my life. I write best-selling novels. My novels go on to the bestseller lists on or shortly after publication. My novels each travel up to the top of the bestseller lists, and they reach the top, and they stay on top for months. Each of my novels does this. So be it. See to it. I will find the way to do this. So be it. See to it. Octavia Butler didn't want to just dream of different worlds. She wanted to change this one. And she knew that the one informed the other. Her so be it is an invitation to give intention over to the universe, and her see to it is an imprecation to herself and the universe that she'd take care of what needed taken care of on her end, writing those books, and she expected no less of the universe. She knew that when we read of different worlds and we experience changed worlds, that when we can take up the powerful co-creation of change, we can inspire ourselves and others to work together towards a shared vision of a future that's so different from all that we fear. Not that there's any lack of things to fear in her novels, especially the parables. The Parable of the Sower, published in 1993, is set in an eerily prescient world full of rampant climate change, government corruption, growing wealth inequality, and corporate greed. And the year that 1993 novel is set in at the start? 2024. Well, here we are. Here we are. Still near the beginning of this year where we know big changes are coming. Ones we know about and ones we don't know yet, right? We know that no matter what the nature of the changes that lie ahead of us, there are going to be people who are upset and people who are ecstatic. People who feel affirmed and people who feel erased. Are we there? Is this that dystopia? Humanity does love a dystopian story, don't we? But why? Why rush to consume the stories of a place or a time where things seem bleak, seem closed, where dream seeds could barely scratch a foothold in the barren soil. Because some of those seeds make it. Some of them do catch hold, and they grow. Those snowflakes gather with joy, and they melt and embrace, and they make the rains that turn that barren land into one flower, then another, until the landscape is bursting with all that could not be imagined before. This is why we read the dystopian novels, see the horror movies, play the games set in the zombie apocalypse. We want to be ready. When it does come, when we arrive in that strange future year, if we have not already, we want to have witnessed others like us also coping with crisis, also running to safety, also teaming up with others to do more than each could do alone. We want to imagine people worrying and planning despite their faith, moving and working despite their doubt. Because if we can imagine them, we can imagine being them. We can imagine singing the songs that bring life to the world. We can imagine the flower growing in the barren soil. We choose to fight not because we've done the math and know what is going to happen tomorrow. We choose to fight because we do not know. We choose to fight because doubt is real, and faith is real, and hope is real, and none of them are as real as our hands, as the neighbor standing next to us, as the ancestors watching over our shoulders. So today's reading, thank you, Emily, is by one of my very favorite poets, Kyle Tran-Myrie. This is a single poem of a cycle of poems published into a book called Not a Lot of Reasons to Sing, But Enough. This poem cycle is set in a dystopian future, yes, where the undesirables of the world have been shipped off to the moon, and where our main protagonists, a robot poet and their human apprentice poet, travel from settlement to tell their poems and share their stories around the fires of communities yearning and trying to make a better life for themselves. Preparing to fight if that's what it takes. Yes, that is right. This book smashes together speculative fiction and poetry and became one of my favorite things in the entire world. Words matter less than the lungs that move them. Fighter isn't a philosophy, organizer isn't an aesthetic, ally isn't an identity. Tomorrow, what we should have done will be worth exactly what it's worth now. Wind, and not even enough wind to move a piece of ash from here to there. So tonight, be real. Tell your story and listen to others. Feel what you feel and choose to act anyway, to show up, to resist. Ask yourself and ask each other, of what future are these the wild early days? I'll tell you a secret. Little me loved reading Stephen King because she felt so scared of so many things already. King dared to show me people like me, kids, finding a way to go on in the face of the unimaginable. Little Octavia Butler, writing in her journal and fighting to create worlds where Black girls like her were accepted, welcomed, honored, and respected, she dared to become a writer who did exactly what she set out to do. If someone had asked her, of what future are these the wild early days, I feel like she might have taken that challenge literally. Like she might have taken up her pen and said, I will write the way through. I will take you to the place where the barren land explodes with flowers and we all know our true worth. Feel what you feel and choose to act anyway, to show up, to resist. We choose to fight because doubt is real, and faith is real, and hope is real, and none of them are as real as our hands, as the neighbor standing next to us, as the ancestors watching over our shoulders. There is a truth that resides within fiction. There is something that we recognize in one another when we gather to share our stories around the fire, to listen to each other. We don't always get to pick the fire. We don't always get to pick the fight. We don't always get the change we want. But nothing lives that does not change. The stories we tell now change the stories we live into. What kind of stories do we want to tell each other? What kind of stories do we want to believe about each other? There is a way to that place where the snow melts because of love and feeds the flowers that transform a barren land. It takes imagination to find the path. It takes a willingness to transform and to be transformed. It takes faith, and it takes doubt, and it takes love, and it takes ourselves, and it takes our neighbors, and it takes our ancestors. All we can say with certainty about the future is that it will change. All we can do is prepare for the future while we live within its wild early days. All we can do is let our heart translate the work of our heads and our hands. So be it. See to it.
This week, we are sharing our offering plate with Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice. UUSJ aligns with our UU values by advocating for them on Capitol Hill in DC and in local governments as well, so we can do things like fight the slate of hate and support a more just immigration system. To contribute, you can give cash or a check into the collection plate, or if online, you can go to allsoulsindy.org, where you'll find a link that says Give to All Souls here. It is beneath the description for today's service. Please do indicate if your gift is a pledge payment or if it is for Share the Plate, if you are paying online or using check. Thank you for your generosity in supporting the mission of All Souls and for your continued support and love for one another and the world. The morning offering may now be given and gratefully received.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And Don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now and later to win, for the times they are a-changing. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hole, for he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. It'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changing. Oh, come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can lend your hand, for the times they are a-changing. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing.
Thank you, thank you. Our time is always changing. The present is here while we are in it, and we know the future, the only thing we know is change. Collect your imaginations, collect your neighbors, your hands, your ancestors, collect the strength within and the strength within community to build the future that we can only dare dream about, but dream it also. So be it. See to it.